In Activity 8, Leaves Make Food, students learn about the main function of plant leaves. Students first collect and examine a variety of leaves and compare the different shapes leaves can have. They then learn that green leaves contain chlorophyll, which captures sunlight and uses it to make food for the plant. Finally, students will make leaf rubbings. You will need the following materials from the kit: Activity Sheet 1, Activity Sheet 8, magnifiers, crayons, and plastic trays. You will also need to provide white scrap paper, a plastic bag, assorted leaves, and tap water. To prepare for the activity, make a copy of Activity Sheet 8 for each student. Students will also need their copy of Activity Sheet 1. Each student will need a magnifier. Each team of 2 will need a small scrap of white paper, a box of crayons, a plastic tray, and several different types of leaves. Ask students to bring several different types of leaves to class. If possible, supply evergreen needles, blades of grass, and other forms that students may not recognize as leaves. To keep the leaves fresh, you can sprinkle them with water, put them in a plastic bag, and store them in a cool place. To begin the activity, redistribute each student's copy of Activity Sheet 1 and encourage students to review the diagram of the plant on the activity sheet. Students should identify where leaves of a plant are located. Then divide the class into teams of 2, distribute a magnifier to each student and the materials to each team. Ask students, do you recognize any of these leaves? What type of plant did each leaf come from? Answers will vary depending on the specimens collected. Instruct students to compare the leaves, noting differences in size and shape. Lead students to conclude that plant leaves come in a variety of sizes, shapes, and arrangements, and that these characteristics are used to identify types of plants. Next, ask students if they know what veins are. They will likely define veins as tubes in the body through which blood flows. Turn students' attention to the leaves and encourage them to feel them. Ask students, do leaves have veins? Explain to the class that the long, thin, branching ridges on the leaf surface are veins. Then ask, what do you think leaf veins do? Students should already know that water and dissolved materials flow through a plant. Help them understand that leaf veins, like the veins in our bodies, transport vital fluids. Next, have students rub a green leaf on a scrap of white paper and observe the stain that results. Ask students if they have any ideas about what makes leaves green. Explain that chlorophyll is a pigment, a colored substance, which is found in plants and gives plants their color. Inform students that all plants contain chlorophyll. Ask students, what is chlorophyll for? Students should recall from Activity 1 that plants make their own food. Let the students know that chlorophyll helps leaves absorb sunlight, which they then use to make food that the plant uses to grow. Then ask, have you ever seen green leaves turn a different color? What do you think causes this? Explain that plants contain other pigments in addition to chlorophyll, including red, orange, or yellow pigments. We do not see these colors because the green pigment overpowers them. However, as winter comes and the days get shorter, the plant produces less and less chlorophyll. The other pigments that are present in the leaves then become visible. Ask students, what do you think happens to the plant when the amount of chlorophyll in its leaves decreases? Guide students to understand that when this happens, the plant is unable to make as much food. Eventually, the leaves dry out and fall off. The plant itself may or may not die, depending on what kind of plant it is. Distribute a copy of Activity Sheet 8 to each student and review the instructions with the students. Tell students to fill the tree with leaves by making colorful rubbings of the leaves in their trays. Encourage them to trade trays with other teams for variety. If you like, you can display the activity sheets in an orchard on the bulletin board. Finally, let students know in the next activity they're going to learn about some very special plant parts, flowers. To conclude the activity, discard the leaves and scraps of paper. Return the trays, magnifiers, and boxes of crayons to the kit. For science background, reinforcement activities, curriculum connections, and information about the Delta Science Reader, please consult your DSM Teacher's Guide.